Had a little listen to his podcast, huh?
Dude, it's educational. And besides, I've been wanting to listen to this one.
Welcome to Idling in the Impala, a podcast by and for lovers of supernatural and the fan fiction it inspires. I'm Sandra.
I'm Carly, and bit of a more serious episode coming at you today. We haven't decided on the name of it yet, but I have christened it. We need to talk about Misha. Guys, we need to talk about Misha. So, before I get any further than that, I'm just going to put a disclaimer out there right at the top of the episode. I will be using the word queer in this episode. It is not meant to cause offense to anybody. I use it to describe myself. That is my lived experience. But if that word makes you feel uncomfortable, you don't like it, if it causes any kind of negative in you whatsoever, just click off. No hard feelings whatsoever. Protect your mental health first. You got to know that word's going to be used. And if you don't like it, please just come back on another episode. So, big old disclaimer about that one. So, this episode's been a long time coming, right the way back from New Jersey Con, which was, when was New Jersey Con? I wrote everything down apart
It was
from
in
that.
April. It was in April.
The first incident happened in April, and then there was something a bit more recent, and we got to talk about it. So I suppose me and Sandra talked about this, and I guess the best way to start this off would probably be to explain why I feel like my voice is relevant in this, because this whole episode is about how Misha's voice fucking isn't. So we'll start off. I'm Carly. Hi. Y'all know. I identify as agender, which is it comes under the umbrella of non-binary, which comes under the larger umbrella of trans. So trans being you don't identify with your assigned gender at birth. Big old umbrella covers a whole heap of things. It doesn't necessarily mean you want to transition or anything like that. It just means that for whatever reason, the gender that you were given at birth, which is the binary male or female, does not fit you. You don't identify with it. Under that umbrella, you've got non-binary, which is, again, another big umbrella that covers a whole heap of different identities. And all that means is that you don't identify with the sort of one or the other binary of traditional genders. So traditionally, you would be male, female, boy, girl. If you feel like those don't fit you, you can, I'm not here to gatekeep whatsoever. Everybody's lived experience is different. How everybody identifies is different. But, non-binary is it's used by a lot of people to cover a lot of different things because it's easier to explain in my experience. So under that non-binary umbrella, I personally fall under my own little umbrella of agender. There's not just me, there's a whole heap of us out there. And what that means is, basically, the way I describe it is 404 gender not found. I have no idea what it means to be a certain gender, to identify with a certain gender. I just don't understand. People say to me, I feel like a woman. And I'm like, what does that mean? Please explain that to me. And that's the thing. Nobody can explain it because the way you identify with your gender is different. But for me, I don't identify either way. I am assigned female at birth, as you can probably tell from my voice, but I don't identify as female. I don't identify as male. I don't identify anywhere on the spectrum between those two, anywhere outside of the binary. I don't get it. That's the only way I could describe it. It's like people trying to explain gender to me is like trying to describe a color you've never seen. I don't understand.
Has it always been that way, Carly?
No, it hasn't. I only sort of kind of stumbled across that one. It's been about a year now, maybe a year and a half.
Okay.
Of always feeling not quite right,
Mm-hmm.
but not knowing what that was. So that's what agender means to me. It means different things to different people, but overall it's like gender neutral, genderless, agender, to fall in line with like asexual and aromantic. Just don't identify either way.
Oh, I've
No
got to
idea what it
ask.
means.
I've got to ask
Yeah.
a question because when I remember there was a thread going with UD, and I saw aromantic for a second, but the way it was spelled was aromatic, and I'm like, why are we talking about fragrances and sexuality? So aromantic. And I had to look
Aromantic.
that up. So is and demisexual. Is that where
Yeah.
you just you don't feel sexually attracted, demisexual? You don't feel sexually attracted to someone unless there's an emotional connection? Is that
Yeah.
correct too? Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
sort of quick rundown. I will try, and any terms that I feel aren't familiar, I will try and explain. So, and again, the crucial thing here is pretty much everything I'm going to describe is a spectrum. There is no one size fits all. So
Right.
asexual is obviously a lack of sexual attraction. And that can go from people who are happy to have sex, but they don't necessarily get anything out of it. They're not fussed for it either way.
Okay.
Maybe they do or do not orgasm, but they're not, they're not bothered, but I'm not asexual, so I can't,
Right.
I'm not 100% sure how that works in terms of that end of the spectrum, whether it's like, you have a nice time and it's pleasurable when the act is happening, but you just don't feel the need to do it like other people do maybe. And then that spectrum goes all the way to the other side to people who are completely sex repulsed. The thought of sex is abhorrent to them. They want nothing to do with it.
Okay.
Demisexual is, I don't think it falls under asexual. I think it's slightly different. But basically demisexual, oh no, it might do actually, because it's to do with sexual arousal. But basically demisexual is that you don't feel a sexual attraction to someone unless you have an emotional connection to them, a bond with them in some way. Right. And again, that bond can be like, it could be a small bond, it can be a small connection, or it can be like really, really intense, and a lot of, I don't want to say milestones, but a lot of connection has to happen before you feel that sexual attraction. So it's all a big old spectrum.
Okay.
And I mean, I would imagine agender is as well, but for me, I don't. I might sit in the middle. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm just like 0 out of 10. Do not understand. People try and tell me, and I'm like, I don't get it. Because like, let's talk about being a woman, because I'm assigned as female. Is it to do with your genitals? Well, everywhere out there in the media is screaming that like TERFs are screaming that women are more than their genitals, but then they're screaming that trans women can't be women because they have male genitals. And I'm like, well, it can't be that makes you a woman. It has to be some kind of, is it the clothes that you wear? Is it that you do your hair and makeup? Well, I wear guy clothes more than I wear girl clothes, and that's always been the case. Can't remember the last time I had a haircut. Oh no, yeah, I can. It was when I shaved it off myself in lockdown, and then I let it grow back. I don't wear makeup. So if that's what makes me a woman, well, I'm not doing it right, So don't.
Yeah,
and don't understand.
That layers a whole bunch of what society says and dictates what being a woman is. And I think you've nailed it. I think you just know.
Yeah.
If you are, you aren't. Like, I mean, I know. Like, to me, that's not a question that I've ever had. You know what I mean? So you either know if you are, if you aren't, or if you're not either, and you don't know what's going on. Like, it's an inherent inside of you knowing what is and what isn't. Yeah.
It's just, as you say, it's just something you feel. like I've had 2 children. I gave birth to them both naturally. Not that I think that makes a blind bit of difference. If your baby comes out the car door or the sunroof, I don't think that makes a blind bit of difference to being a mother or how you view yourself. But I've had 2 children, and that has not changed the way I feel in any way. I was not pregnant with either of my children and be like, I'm a woman, I'm making new life. I was just like, oh, I'm an incubator. Okay, that's fine. Not like in a weird, gross way. Like I was never uncomfortable being pregnant. I was never like, oh God, this isn't what I'm meant to be doing. This is awful. I was just like, all right, fine, you know. But I never like. You will sometimes hear those stories of people being like, I knew what it meant to be a woman. I was carrying new life, and I felt really connected. And I never felt that. I was like, all right, this is what we're doing. If anything, my body felt less mine when I was pregnant than it does every day of the week, because I'm like,
that makes sense.
Well, it's yours now. You're doing what you want to do
need with it to make sure we get this thing to come out. And
it's very bizarre because you have no control over it's not your body to control in any way. You have no control over what's going to happen. You have no control over whether that pregnancy is going to be viable. It just does what it wants, and you just go, all right, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
But just completely did not understand. And so that's mentally, that's my gender identity. That's how I feel in my mind. But then just to complicate things, because why is life ever easy? Physically, I identify as transmasc, which are transmasculine, which is a lot of umbrellas here, guys. This is another umbrella that covers a whole heap of different things, but primarily what it is usually assigned female at birth. People who, like me, don't identify with being female, but don't really identify with being male either. So it's quite common in the sort of non-binary spectrum, is that I don't want to be a man. I don't feel like a man. I don't feel like I'm trapped in the wrong body or anything like that. I just want to look like a guy.
Okay.
It's that simple. I have no, like we said, gender 404 not found. Whatever it is that makes you a man, I don't know what that is either. But I would like my body not to look feminine. So I would, in an ideal world, I would have surgery. I would change things around. That's not an option that's available to me. So we endure. But that's how I identify. Another group of people that identify as transmasc can be sort of, well, it's called like demi-boy, and it comes under transmasc, and it's like people who are assigned male at birth don't really feel a big connection to being male. They could use the term demi-boy to describe themselves, and that all falls under the transmasc umbrella. And like for most things, you can be trans femme, trans feminine as well. It's all a spectrum, and it all goes one way or the other. So in terms of my journey, and if I needed any more of a pass to get into the LGBTQ plus community, I'm pansexual as well. So if my gender identity doesn't get me in, I definitely fall under the B of LGBTQ. So I'm allowed in. I'm allowed to talk about this. We all had a meeting. It's fine. I'm allowed. Okay. Pansexual falls under bisexual. And again, these things mean different things to different people. What it means to me is gender blind. Again, I just don't get it, guys. When I missed a class on gender. I was sick that day. I didn't turn up. I didn't get it. So
does that mean, like, from my understanding, like pansexual, it almost means like whatever your partner is that you're attracted to, it makes no difference how they would identify either. Yes. It's just like that bond that you have with with your partner. Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha. So I've heard pansexual described as being attracted to the person, not the body. So yeah, if I find like you attractive, I've been married for nearly 9 years. This is not a conversation that comes up anymore. other than me and my husband might accidentally check out the same girl on a TV show, and then I'll be like, right, and he's like, yes, it makes watching TV so much easier, guys, I've got to say, because we're both looking at the hot girl, But for me, I tend to describe it as whatever I find in your pants, I'm going to be happy with. I have you can be binary male and female. That's great. You can be a trans man, a trans woman. That's great. You can be non-binary and present in whatever way you want. I'm not going to put my hand in your pants and be unhappy unless you're a lizard. If you're a lizard, I'm going to have questions, first of all. That's going to be like sexual arousal will take a backseat because I'm going to be like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, assuming everything
it sounds like we want to be on the same species level. As
long as you are the same species as me, whatever is going on, I'm going to be happy with, which that sounds really narcissistic. I'll be happy with whatever you've got. No, I don't have a preference. I can't see gender in myself. And I understand other people act in a gendered way, but it has no impact on my state of attraction to them. But again, I've been married for nearly 9 years. This is not a thing that comes up that often.
Right.
Anymore. I'm in a committed monogamous relationship with my husband. It's not like we're out boning other people every weekend. We're tired. We have children, small children. We're tired. Shit to do. So, like I said, we sat down, we had a meeting. I'm allowed to talk about this. I've got all the passes. It's fine. I'm allowed to talk about this. So, in terms of like my kind of journey, because I was, as I've said, assigned female at birth, raised as a girl, never really enjoyed that, I've got to say. Dresses and things like that were not for me. I was very much a stereotypical tomboy kid, much to my mother's endless disappointment, because she wanted a girl that she could dress in pretty dresses and we would be the best of friends. And what she got was me, who was a hot mess right from the beginning. There are very few photos of me, ones I was able to dress myself in dresses, and the ones that are from events, not from every day,
Yeah.
I was never the kid that was running around in dresses or skirts or things like that. And for what it's worth, I don't believe that clothing should be gendered, but it was the 90s and it was.
Yeah.
It still is. I don't believe it should, but it is. So that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And I'd always had this sort of like this niggling thought that was, I wish I was a boy. And I've had that thought from being very, very small. I wish I was a boy. But it was never demanding. It was never like to the forefront of my mind. I'd never felt like I was in the wrong body or, all those things that unfortunately trans people do live through and experience when they're young, especially people from my generation. If I'd have turned around to my mum and gone, I'm a boy, she would have gone, you're a girl, shut up. And that would have been the end of it. It was not a particularly supportive time. But like I say, it was never like this big thing. I was never like, I'm a boy, I'm not a girl, stop calling me a girl. It was just, I wish I was a boy, And that persisted throughout my childhood, my teens. I wish I was a boy. As I became sexually active and started hooking up with people, I wish I was a boy. I just feel like sex would be easier if I was a boy. And for the whole journey that the whole hellish, mountainous, still in the middle of journey that my gender identity has been, my sexuality was so easy. I knew I liked boys and girls as soon as I knew what it meant to like boys and girls. I never differentiated. I was always like, oh, that person's attractive, And I never spoke to anybody about this because I didn't think it was a problem.
Okay.
But I didn't have the kind of touchy-feely family where we all sat about and talked about how we felt. So it never came up.
Right.
It just never came up. And I was like, nobody's telling me it's wrong, so I'm just going to carry on regardless. And that would have been from a very, very, very young age. I think my first girl crush was probably Xena, Warrior Princess, Lucy Lawless. Oh, still in her even now, so many years down the line. But yeah, and it was just, I never agonized about it. I was never like, oh, this is wrong, you should like boys or girls, sorry. I was just like, everybody's attractive, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then it was so easy. I got older, I learned what the word bisexual was, and I was like, yeah, that's me. And then I got older still, and I learned more things, and pansexual started floating about, and I was like, oh yeah, that's better. Yeah, no, that's better. I'm not just settled, and it was so fucking easy. I wish everything was that easy. But in terms of identity, yeah, up into my sort of like my late teens, my 20s, I wish I was a boy.
Okay.
And I wish I was a boy turned into I wish I had a penis.
Okay.
As you grow, because it became less about, because when you're a kid, wanting to be a boy is very much about like who you can play with and the toys that you can play with. It was the 90s. Again, I realize it's probably not like that now. But like, you know, girls didn't play with boys, did they? We played with dolls, they played with trucks, you know, we dressed one way, they dressed another way.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very much what it was. But as I got older, it became more of not like a sexual thing, like a fetish or anything, just like I just feel like sex would be better if I had a cock.
Okay.
That was just what it turned into. I don't have one, unfortunately, so I couldn't tell you if that worked.
Okay.
But that was sort of what it matured into. And again, it just kind of stayed around, and it didn't develop into anything. It was never demanding, and it was never. I never had any feeling of wrongness or being in the wrong body or anything like that. It was just, yeah, I wish I was a guy. I wish I had a penis, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
And that kind of, I will say, in terms of being pregnant, I very much would say I sort of checked out. Like I didn't feel like my body was mine at all in either of those times. I was just an incubator. My body was doing what it was going to do. And then when we had the baby, it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
And my body just went back to being my body again after that. So it never caused any issues. It was just this quiet little voice in the back of my head that was just like, I would really like it if we were like this. And that wasn't an option. So that was fine. And then I can't remember exactly what prompted me on the journey to being agender. I think, I'll be honest, I think it might have been more, things became more common, you know, like you saw these things more in the media and things like that.
Yeah.
And I was definitely, like, I was in touch with you and Date. So I was like, I was on Twitter a lot, and I was just kind of seeing the spaces that were out there.
Right.
Because I didn't really engage with anything like that before, you know, we got together.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just kind of seeing what was out there and what was happening, and seeing people talking about this. And it just, I don't know, it just tripped something. And I was like, oh, I've had this voice for a long time. Am I trans? And I went through a little bit of that, and I was like, no, I don't think so. I don't want to be a man. I don't know what it means to be a man. And I remember me and you and Dee having a lot of conversations about what does it mean to be a woman? How do you identify yourself as a woman? Because I just, like I said, it's like trying to explain to me a color that I've never seen. I'm like, I don't understand what it means. What is it that makes you you? I don't get it.
Yeah. I don't even think I could, like I said, I couldn't, because I don't necessarily, I don't necessarily wear a lot of makeup on a day-to-day basis. I don't wear a lot of quote unquote, girly clothes. I like to dress up on occasion. I like to put on makeup. I like to feel, I like my, of course it's always a body issue, right? Regardless, but like, I do like that there are curves, and I've never felt like I've never had that question about this body doesn't fit me, at least in terms of a female. You know what I mean? Like I could always question, oh, too many pounds. I don't like this. I don't like that. I don't like these things. But my body's always felt like, I'm good with being a female. Now, what that means in society and stuff is totally different. Because I don't think that it's necessarily the easiest, and to be a female in general,
Oh,
in such a
definitely.
patriarchal society. But yeah, I couldn't tell you, like you said, I think you just know, it sounds like you've just had a lot of light switches like throughout your journey, right? Like another thing,
Yeah.
like, oh, here's something. Oh, here's something. And it's that discovery. And I think that's true about anyone's just inherent identity within themselves. You learn more about yourselves as you go, you know. Um yeah,
Hmm.
I think D was kind of the same. Like you just kind of, yeah, you just kind of you just know.
You
Like if you
just
feel like
know.
you fit in
Yeah.
that spot, you know. You're not trying to put a round peg in a square hole kind of thing over and over again. There's different ways to express your sexuality too.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, just my tangent.
No, 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 no. Ask questions, input,
Mhm.
input. Otherwise, this will be like 3 hours of me just talking to myself, and that would be weird. Oh, good God, what happened? Yeah. So, yeah. So then I was just like, I do think a big part of it was coming into Twitter and finding people talking about this stuff and
Mhm.
finding, a space where it was
Mhm.
discussed and being like, oh shit, there are other people that feel like this. Because I'd always known about trans people. I'd always
Mhm.
known what that meant, and
Mhm.
I'd never been disrespectful about that, but it just never felt like it applied to me
Mhm.
until I'd sort of got into these spaces. And it wasn't so much getting into these spaces, it was seeing the whole spectrum
Mhm.
of things and being like, oh, maybe there's something more going on here. And yeah, having a lot of conversations with myself. Am I a trans man? Do I want to transition? Is that what's going to make me happy? No, I don't know what it is to be a man either. I don't know what I don't know how you identify as that. I don't want to be male. I don't feel like that's what's right.
Mhm.
And then it was just through various different kind of researches and things like that, because non-binary never felt, and that never felt right either, because I was like, I'm not either. I don't, it's not that I'm outside the binary, and like, because I have friends that are like gender fluid and stuff, and they've explained it as like it changes. Some days you wake up feeling like a woman, and some days you wake up feeling like a man, and you go about your life accordingly. And I was like, I just never feel like anything. I don't. What does it mean? Help
Mhm.
me.
Mhm.
And finding a gender and looking into that, and I was like, oh, light bulb, right? Yeah, that's it. That's
Okay.
it. And then having a very difficult conversation with my husband, who is a cis het man and has never professed any interest in being anything other than a cisgendered heterosexual man. So he's not even, if you ever asked Ted, he'd be like, would you do X for like $1 million?
Mm.
You know, I've
Mhm.
asked my husband things like that. Like, would you fuck a guy for $1 million? Would you
Mhm.
suck a guy off for $1 million? And he's like, nope, 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 nope. And I'm like, but you'd have £1 million. And I could never get my head around this, probably because of my sexuality. But I was like, but you'd have 1 million. Do you know how much money? And he's like, nope, nope. And I'm like, what if someone did it to you? You could just close your eyes and think of England. And he's like, no, no, we would have £1 million. What's wrong with you? So he is, 100%
Mhm.
heterosexual. So it was a really difficult conversation because I was
Yeah.
essentially coming out to him as not a cis woman. And I was
Right.
like, this could be it. He is the
Yeah.
love of my life. I will never love anybody like I love this man. And if me and him were to split up,
Mhm.
I don't think I'd ever be with anybody else for the rest of my life.
Mm.
He's it, you know?
Mhm.
He's the Sam to my Dean in a
Yeah.
not creepy, weird incest way, you know? But
Yeah.
he's it.
Mhm.
So I was like, well, I've got to be honest to myself. That's what I'm trying to raise my kids as. So I was like, okay, and this. And it was a difficult conversation, and there were tears, and he was like, okay, that's fine. And I was like, you say that, you don't know what it means. What if I decide I want top surgery, I want to do this? And he was like, we'll work it out together. It's fine. And then that just kind of, that settled, you know, that just settled, and we've communicated and we've worked it out. And I was like, okay, I'm agender. I don't tell most people I'm agender because it's complicated. People are like, what do you mean you don't? And then I'm like, what do you mean you do? And it's just a pointless conversation. So just tell people I'm MB, I'm non-binary, and that seems to be more accepted. People seem to know what that means. So they go, oh, okay. And then continue to use female pronouns on me. And I'm like, okay, fine. Because when I came out to my husband as agender, and I was like, I'm going to use they, them pronouns because I don't feel like either. And he was like, okay, we've had a few hiccups. But in the most part, he refers to me by the correct pronouns. And he's like one of about 4 people that do. So, you know, people go, oh, you're non-binary. All right, okay, yeah, I know what that means. And I go, and I'm non-binary, and I use they, them pronouns, and I put them in my name on Zoom and everything like that. And they go, So anyway, she did this. And I'm like, okay. So that's a whole other rant that we can get into about respecting people's fucking pronouns. I have it on like various different badges as well. I have it on various different badges, and people just glaze over. They're just like, nope. So it's fine. But then that settled down, and that was okay. But there's still this nagging voice in the back of my head. It's quiet. I don't have to pay a great deal of attention. It was just, still wish we had a cock, though. And that threw me, because I was like, but we've established. Like, we've established the gender. We know what's happening. Stop this. We're assigned female at birth, and we don't have a cock. Live with it. And my brain went, no, we're just going to think about it all the fucking time. So that threw everything back into doubt, because I was like, shit, am I actually really trans? No. I still don't know what male gender looks like. I don't want to be male. I don't understand. Help me, guys. But physically, my brain would not fucking shut up about wanting a male body. So we went back and forth on that a few times, and eventually kind of settled into trans mask.
Okay.
Probably could identify as demi-boy, but I prefer the term trans mask. So mentally, agender, 404 gender not found. Physically, trans mask. I prefer to present masculine. Obviously, this is a problem because I have a female body. So I do have a chest. I've had 2 kids. I got a chest. I got an ass. I got curves. I've got the voice that I've got. So this presents a bit of a problem in terms of my brain, because my brain doesn't want any of these things. I still have a functioning reproductive system, which irritates me endlessly. And that irritated me when I was just identifying as agender, because I was like, this is unnecessary. I'm not having any more children. You stop this right now. But in the UK, it's very difficult to get gender affirming care. And I just don't think that that's going to happen. I'm not sure. I haven't really looked into it. But of course, with getting any kind of gender affirming care, there comes the big issue that my husband is still a heterosexual, cisgendered man.
Right.
So he would probably not be as happy as I would if I was to have top surgery, for example. I would be endlessly happy. He would be less so. And the voice isn't loud enough that I would end my entire marriage over it. I love him endlessly. We make it work with what we've got, you know?
Yeah.
But it's just nice to know what these things are, to know who you are and what you want and how you want to be. So on a given day, You are not going to find me in, like a typical feminine underwired bra that's boobs everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You'll probably find me in some kind of sports bra or crop top. That's if you find me in a bra at all, to be honest, because I spend a lot of time in my pajamas.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the point in getting dressed.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I making more washing? I could just live in my pajamas. or in my Sam sweater that I got from our merch store. And my Dean hot dog pajamas or my Jared AKF pajamas. But still, I'm not gonna be doing that. You'll probably find me in far more masculine clothes. So, men's t-shirts, things like that, men's pajama bottoms. I wear leggings. But that's a comfort thing more than an anything else thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know we talked about this and you were like, I live in jeans. I'm like, why do you hate yourself? Have you tried leggings? They're the best.
I've never liked them. I don't know what I have like a couple that sometimes I'll wear around the house, but even then they're just not my thing. No. Yeah.
Yeah, it's each their own. I used to be very much the same. I was like, they're inside clothes, they're not outside clothes. And then you know what happened actually? I went on a trip with my husband and a bottle of pop exploded in our suitcase and ruined our clothes that we had bought for the evening. And I had to go out in a pair of leggings that I was going to wear under a dress, but the dress was ruined. So I had to go out in these leggings. And afterwards I was like, this is the best. I'm never doing anything else. So yeah. But I do prefer to present masculine. And I do what I can to limit the feminine parts of my body. Obviously, I can't do everything. I do have curves. I have a chest. I have an ass. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having an ass. Jensen has an ass. That doesn't. It's inherently female. But...
My husband has a great ass.
It is not. You have a nice ass too, babes. If you're listening to this, you also have a great ass. Just in case this is the episode you listen to and he's like, well, Sandra said he probably wouldn't, but just in case. I often wonder if he can hear his recording. I don't think he can though. He's never mentioned anything about it. So yeah, that's kind of just where we are at the moment.
Can I ask?
You can
ask. So the whole wanting a cock thing, is that like a 24/7, like you just want it for just to have in general, like, or is it like for specific purposes? Can I ask what that feels like? Because when you say sometimes I think about that, what does that feel like for you? Like when? All the time? Maybe just for this particular activity, for that particular activity?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm having to think about it now. Yeah. Do you know weirdly, the only time it's not on my mind in some form, like it's not like on my mind constantly, but like you have like a low level awareness of your body at any given moment. Like you without thinking like where your feet are or what your hands are doing. And it's not conscious, you're just aware of it. It's like
so like
that.
When you put your hands in your pants, you're wanting there to be a cock there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The only time that doesn't happen is if I'm actually having sex. I'm not thinking about it at all. Sex is easy. That's easy. But if I'm by myself, then it's right at the forefront of my mind. That's one of the only times it comes and like sits right in the front of my mind and makes a really big fucking nuisance of itself. If I'm by myself. But if I'm with my husband, it shuts off completely.
Okay.
But in day-to-day given life, I'm just like, oh, it'll just be nice.
Okay.
It'll just be convenient. Not just for sex, but also I don't have to use public restrooms. I could stand up. That would just be nice. I don't know. Like, for whatever reason, men's restrooms get a bad rap. And I have been in women's restrooms and we are gross, people. I will, we collectively, because plenty of non-binary people use women's bathrooms, as a collection, people that use women's bathrooms are disgusting. We're gross. It's awful. I hate it. I wouldn't have to deal with that. I'd just stand up and pay. Because I don't mind my current genital configuration So I'd keep that. I just want it extra as well. You know? I would happily have both.
Like a Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, all right. Yeah.
The option, right?
Yeah. I just
change it out.
No, I just have both at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I just
Gotcha.
have both at the same time.
All right.
Because I like
if only scientific advances are at that point.
Well, you can have surgery to turn female parts into male parts. I'm trying to avoid getting incredibly graphic. I realize we've been a bit graphic, but I'm trying to avoid it being incredibly graphic. And I have looked into that, but it's not functional.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they can give you the appearance,
right?
But it's not functional.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and
gotcha.
that's the big deal, because I can deal with the appearance of my stuff. I want that bit to be functional. Yeah.
yeah.
But also, like, I'm married to a man for a reason. And that reason is that I enjoy sex like that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't want to lose that. I just want this extra bit as well. I'm just like, I'm greedy. I want all of the things. I would like both of the things at the same time. Thank you.
No, Carly, that seems incredibly complicated. So I'm getting some. Yeah, that sounds very complicated for you,
it's
just in general.
Stressful.
Yeah.
It's very stressful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, of course, along with everything that goes with that, there are inherent triggers and pitfalls that you don't expect. So the only people I allow to misgender me are my children, because I have not discussed any of this with them, because they are children. And it's that simple. Everybody should live their truth. And if you are out there and you are closeted trans or closeted non-binary or closeted whatever, the fact that you have children and a family and everything else should not stop you from living the life that you want to live and being happy. This is my personal circumstance. Everybody's living their own lived experience. So this, for me, I've had like little conversations with my son about how I don't identify as a girl, but he's still young, and I'm not going to push it, because if I felt like I actively had to transition, I would sit him down and have a conversation.
Have that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because I don't, and everything that I could or would do would be private, I don't feel like I need to put that on him, you know?
Yeah.
So he will go around and call me she and her, usually when he's complaining about me, but still. And it hurts. I don't like it, but I don't correct. And both of my children call me mum, and I'm absolutely fine with that.
Well, to me, that doesn't necessarily have to be related to a gender, right? You're the mother. So
I'm their mum. They came from me, and that is, being a mom is one of the best things that ever happened to me, you know.
Yeah.
I know who mum is far more than I know who Carly is. It's comfortable, you know, and that's never bothered me. I would never ask them to change what they called me, and I would never want them to change what they called me.
Yeah.
I do prefer spouse over wife, but that's more because I don't have a problem with wife, because that was my identity for a long time. But if you give people an inch, they'll take a mile. So it's one of the boundaries that I had to draw, not because the word wife upsets me or I don't identify with it or anything like that. But if I say spouse, people listen to that. And I think if I say spouse enough, maybe it will trigger in their mind that I'm not female. I don't identify that way. It doesn't. But I'm in this deep now that I figure I might as well just carry on. So it's just, you know, spouse is more of a boundary than anything else. Because I'm like, if I can't make you call me by what I prefer to be called, I will make you do this, because then that is one less thing that you can make painful for me. Wife is inherently gendered, it's inherently female. And while I have no problem with it, if my husband called me his wife, he doesn't, he calls me spouse because he's good. But if he did, I would be fine with that. We,
Mhm.
I still use the title Mrs. Mostly because most places don't give you any other options. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I'm married. I'm not a miss. You're not
Mhm.
having that from me. That's mine. I worked for that. But if he were to call me his wife, it wouldn't bother me. But for somebody who doesn't respect my identity to call me his wife, that would
Mhm.
bother me
Mhm.
because that's just another way to disrespect me.
Yeah.
So I just draw the line there. I'm just
Mhm.
like, you can call me a mum because I am, but don't call me a wife because you're not respecting my identity. You're just seeing a female and ascribing a name to me.
Mhm.
So you will use spouse or partner.
So this is part 1 of our 3-part Misha episode. If you want to reach out to us, you can email us at idlinginthe.impala@gmail.com or reach out to us on Twitter at idlinginthe_D_Impala. You can find links to our personal socials and our AO3 accounts in the description. And there's also a link to my author website and original fiction. Also in the description will be links to our Ko-fi page if you feel able to give a little donation, and our merch store. So with that, we'll say thanks for joining us in the backseat, and we'll see you next time.